A pale disk hangs in the sky, patient and eternal, yet strangely close. Too close, some would say. For millennia, it has guided the oceans, measured the seasons, and whispered to the rhythms of human sleep. But beneath its stillness lies a riddle. What if the moon is not what it seems, not a fragment torn from the earth, nor a captured wanderer of the void, but something else, something placed, engineered, and watching? Ancient voices spoke of it as an eye, a mirror, a beacon for the gods. Modern scientists have quietly puzzled over its hollow echoes, its impossible balance, its orbit so exact it feels deliberate. The moon has been the stage of myth and memory, yet its existence carries the weight of design. If it is an artifact, then whose hands raised it into the night? Was it the architects of forgotten ages, the visitors etched into clay and stone, the beings that walked beside the first cities? Or is it a vault, a construct humming with ancient machinery, a silent guardian veiling truths we were never meant to hold? Each question folds into the next, like shadows sinking into deeper shadows. The mystery widens, the silence thickens, and history itself begins to tremble at its edges. Welcome to ARCHAEON. If you're drawn to stories like these, the ones that live in the shadows between what we see and what was made to disappear, feel free to like and subscribe only if it feels right. And let me know in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it for you right now? I love seeing our little map of watchers light up around the world. The moon lingers in the human imagination, not only as a satellite of stone and dust, but as an eternal companion whose very presence unsettles. Its proportions are unlike any other known pairing in the solar system. A body so large compared to its host planet that it seems anomalous, defying easy explanation. Astronomers have long proposed models, giant impacts, primordial capture, or co-formation, but none of these tales ever sits comfortably. Each theory opens a seam, a quiet dissonance that refuses to be sealed. The so-called giant impact hypothesis, where a Mars-sized body struck Earth and the debris congealed into a moon, is elegant in its violence. Yet samples returned from Apollo missions tell a more ambiguous story, showing isotopic signatures nearly identical to those of Earth, as if the moon were not a stranger born of another world, but something carved deliberately from Earth itself. That sameness whispers of intent, as though a sculptor sought to match two stones from the same quarry, ensuring balance, disguise, and familiarity. The first astronauts who set foot upon its dust spoke of a silence so vast it seemed to swallow thought. Yet the experiments they placed on the surface gave birth to strange echoes. When lunar modules crashed upon its plains, the moon rang like a bell, reverberating far longer than expected, as though it were hollow or laced with vast caverns. Some dismissed this as mere seismic behavior in a dry, fractured world, but others could not escape the impression that they had struck a resonant shell. Could it be that beneath the ancient regolith lies architecture, metal, or chambers unfathomed? If the moon is a machine, it hides beneath layers of dust that record 4 billion years of forgotten history. The ancients often spoke of the moon not as a passive orb, but as a guiding intelligence. In Sumerian texts, Nana, the lunar deity, was both fatherly and distant, his temple aligned with celestial precision. The Maya carved lunar glyphs into their codices, tracking eclipses with an accuracy that rivaled modern astronomers. Yet the question lingers. How did such early cultures know to trace cycles that require centuries of observation? Did they inherit calculations not of their own making? In Chinese traditions, the moon was home to the goddess Chang'e, whose ascent was not a myth of romance, but a tale of exile, as if the moon itself were a place of refuge beyond earthly reach. And in the songs of indigenous peoples, the moon is often a watcher, a keeper of memory, a presence that does not merely reflect, but records. As telescopes grew more powerful, more questions rose from the surface. Craters should vary more widely in depth, yet they often share a strange shallowness, as if a hidden shield prevented impacts from plunging deeper. Vast maria stretch across the lunar face, darker plains of basalt, yet their distribution seems unnaturally lopsided, as though someone had carefully weighted the moon toward the side that faces Earth. And there is that eternal mystery, the far side, the hidden hemisphere, unseen by human eyes until the 20th century. Why does the moon always turn the same face to Earth, locked in a synchrony so perfect that it feels engineered? Astronomers explain it as tidal locking, the mathematics of orbits. Yet the precision unsettles. If even a fraction were shifted, our eclipses would not align with such beauty. Our tides would not flow with such steadiness. Is this an accident, or does the very dance between Earth and Moon speak of calibration, as though placed with the care of a cosmic instrument? During the Cold War, both superpowers looked upward, not only with wonder, but suspicion. Lunar missions became more than exploration. They were reconnaissance. There were whispers of anomalies, strange lights flaring across the surface, geometric structures glimpsed in photographs, craters with edges too sharp, shadows that defied explanation. In later decades, some of these images were quietly archived, mislabeled, or lost. Yet even with the fragments that remain, the impression persists. The moon is not a simple stone, but a riddle wrapped in veils of dust and time. Some researchers, on the margins of academia, dared to suggest that it might be an ark, a vault carrying knowledge or even life across the void. Others whispered of it as a base, a platform from which eyes have watched Earth since the dawn of humanity. When myths and science cross, the result is rarely tidy, yet the resonance is undeniable. The Zulu people speak of a time before the moon, when the world was lit only by the sun and stars, before two brothers rolled the moon across the sky like a great egg. If such tales hold even a fragment of memory, could there have been an age before the moon hung in the heavens, an epoch when human eyes gazed into a different sky? Geologists sometimes note that ancient rhythms of life, measured in fossils of corals and shells, suggest days once shorter, tides once calmer. When the moon entered Earth's orbit, everything changed. The length of days, the rhythm of seas, perhaps even the course of evolution. Did it arrive as a natural accident, or as a deliberate intervention? The Soviet scientist Mikhail Vasin and engineer Alexander Shcherbakov once advanced a provocative idea in the 1970s. The moon might be a hollowed-out planetoid, an ancient spaceship placed into orbit by unknown beings. Their paper, though controversial, pointed to anomalies, its density lower than expected, its unusual orbit, its strange resonance. They argued that such characteristics could suggest an artificial satellite, a body modified to serve as a kind of station. Mainstream science dismissed the proposal, but the question lingered in the minds of those who sensed that the moon's familiarity might mask a secret more profound than we dare admit. After all, if civilizations once greater than ours walked the earth, Would they not leave behind monuments not only in stone, but in the very fabric of the sky? The thought unsettles because it suggests surveillance, guidance, perhaps even control. If the moon is more than rock, then humanity itself might be less free than it believes. Ancient texts often describe gods who descended in chariots of fire, who taught humanity agriculture, writing, astronomy. Where did they retreat when their age ended? Some point upward, suggesting that the moon, with its silent gaze, may be their last redoubt, a fortress of the watchers. And perhaps this explains why, after brief voyages, humankind has not returned. The Apollo missions ended abruptly, not with triumph, but with retreat, as though some threshold had been crossed, some warning received, leaving only dust and silence behind. Yet skepticism persists. Scientists remind us that anomalies do not imply design, that coincidences are not proofs. The ringing of the moon, the shallowness of craters, the tidal lock, these can all be explained within the boundaries of physics and geology. And yet, the mind returns to the image of that perfect orbit, the precise symmetry that allows the moon to eclipse the sun so flawlessly, covering its disk as if by cosmic stagecraft. What are the chances that such alignment occurs, that the sizes and distances conspire to create a spectacle so exact? Coincidence, perhaps, or perhaps theater, an arrangement meant to draw our eyes upward, to remind us of a hidden architecture shaping our fate. As shadows lengthen and questions deepen, one is left with a feeling not of certainty but of invitation. The moon resists closure, offering instead a mirror for our doubts, our hopes, our myths. Its surface is scarred and ancient, yet its meaning remains alive, stirring in the restless silence of human thought. Could it be that the moon is itself a scripture, written not in words but in stone and orbit, waiting for us to read? Or perhaps it is a vault, sealed by hands we no longer remember, carrying secrets of a time before history. If so, then what might it reveal? And are we prepared for the knowledge that sleeps in its shadows? The night sky has always been a text, silent yet legible to those who dared to look closely. The moon, with its measured glow, became more than a companion. It became a puzzle woven into ritual, architecture, and prophecy. In ancient Babylon, ziggurats rose tier upon tier, their very alignment tracing celestial rhythms. The moon's cycles were inscribed into cuneiform tablets, not simply as calendars but as codes, predictions of fate and fortune. Was this devotion born only from agricultural necessity, or did it arise from whispers that the moon carried a hidden intelligence, a mechanism beyond stone and dust? Each record echoes with a curious reverence, a suggestion that what hovered above was not merely a reflector of sunlight, but a governor of earthly order. When archaeologists uncovered the Nebra sky disk in Germany, dating back to the Bronze Age, they found gold inlays marking both the sun and the moon, alongside a cluster of stars. It was not merely art, it was instruction, a portable cosmos etched into bronze. The moon on that disk was painted as a sickle, an image of waxing and waning that guided planting, harvest, and ritual sacrifice. Yet its precision implies a lineage of observation stretching back centuries, perhaps millennia. Such knowledge seems older than the culture that held it, as if inherited from a source now lost. Could the disk be a fragment of a larger memory, a remnant of contact with beings who once guided humanity's gaze towards the sky? Legends repeat across geographies with unnerving similarity. The Dogon people of Mali spoke of Sirius and its invisible companion long before modern telescopes confirmed the existence of Sirius B. They also described the moon as an object of origin myths, tied to amphibious beings who came from the stars. How did a people without machines know of a star's companion invisible to the naked eye? Was it oral tradition, passed through contact, or a vision drawn from the same source as other myths of luminous visitors? Across oceans, the Maori of Aotearoa told of Rona, who was seized by the moon and carried upward, becoming part of its eternal face. In that tale lingers an odd inversion. The moon is not passive, but active, a force that reaches down, seizes, and absorbs. What unsettles most is the uncanny fit of lunar mechanics with terrestrial life. Without the moon, Earth would wobble, seasons would shift chaotically, tides would diminish, and the delicate balance of ecosystems might never have emerged as we know them. It is as if the moon's arrival calibrated Earth for habitation, locking its tilt, moderating its climate, stirring the oceans to encourage life along the shores. Scientists debate whether life could have arisen without such influence. If the moon was merely an accident, then we live in the shadow of extraordinary luck. But if it was placed, then our entire existence might be a consequence of design, a garden tended by unseen hands. To ask who or what could have arranged such precision is to enter the forbidden corridors of history where myth and cosmology blur with science. The accounts of ancient temples further thicken this mystery. At Stonehenge, the great sarsen stones mark solstices, but smaller, often overlooked circles align with lunar standstills, those rare points when the moon's rising and setting extremes are reached. Such alignments require decades of careful tracking. Who had the patience and instruments to carve such precision into megaliths? The stones whisper of societies guided not merely by farming cycles, but by a deeper urgency to map and mirror the moon's path. In Chaco Canyon, New Mexico, spiral petroglyphs mark the point where a dagger of sunlight bisects the carvings during solstice, yet nearby, crescents and lunar motifs appear with equal insistence. Were these records of ritual, or records of communication, coordinates etched in stone to signal alignment with something far beyond the visible world? There is also the matter of strange lights, phenomena observed across centuries, reports of glowing orbs drifting above lunar craters, flares of illumination, and geometric patterns of brightness have emerged since telescopes first aimed at the moon. Astronomers in the 19th century catalogued these transient lunar phenomena, suspecting volcanic eruptions or gas releases. But the moon is geologically dead, its silence unbroken for billions of years, or so we are told. Why then do such lights continue to appear, fleeting, unclaimed by mainstream explanation? Could they be the work of mechanisms buried within, signaling or recalibrating, or perhaps simple leaks from ancient technology hidden below the crust? Each unexplained flash deepens the sense of a living system concealed beneath the guise of desolation. In the realm of myth, one theme repeats: the gods descend, teach, and then vanish, leaving only the moon as their eye in the sky. The Greeks spoke of Selene, a goddess who drove her chariot across the night, her pale face a mask of power. The Aztecs told of Tecuchiztecatl, who hesitated before leaping into the sacrificial fire, becoming the moon, timid yet luminous. These tales may seem like poetic allegories, yet why is the moon so persistently personified as a conscious agent? Perhaps it is not simple projection, but memory, echoes of encounters translated into divine narrative. Could the moon itself, or what it contains, have once been mistaken for the dwelling of gods? Conflict arises when science steps forward, offering frameworks that explain away these echoes. Tidal locking, orbital resonance, crater patterns, all can be modeled, calculated, simulated. The moon does not need to be a machine. It is enough, they say, to be a celestial body following laws of gravity and motion. Yet even in these reassurances, small cracks appear. Why is the moon's orbit nearly circular when most captured bodies follow eccentric paths? Why does it stabilize Earth so perfectly, maintaining conditions so precisely tuned to life? And why do fossilized records suggest that Earth's environment became more conducive to complexity soon after the moon's stabilizing presence emerged? Coincidence piles upon coincidence, until doubt itself begins to take on the shape of an answer. What if the moon is both? A natural body and an altered one, a stone hollowed and reforged into something greater. This possibility, raised by Soviet theorists in the 20th century, merges geology and engineering into a single narrative. Imagine a wandering planetoid captured and then reshaped, seeded with machinery, stabilizers, and chambers, set deliberately into orbit. Over eons, dust gathered, impacts scarred its face, and it grew indistinguishable from a lifeless world. Yet inside, the ancient work would remain, hidden in silence, waiting for its purpose to awaken. To those who glance upward, it appears barren, but to those who listen deeper, it rings with secrets. The climax of this unease surfaces when considering eclipses. Few cosmic events stir such awe. The sun's disk swallowed perfectly by the moon, the corona revealed in a halo of fire. That the moon fits so exactly, covering the sun with such precision, seems improbable. In all the known solar system, no such pairing occurs. Was this alignment an accident of size and distance, or a sign, a deliberate arrangement meant to draw our gaze skyward, to force us to witness the architecture of the cosmos? Ancient priests read omens in these events, declaring them messages from gods. Today we explain them with geometry, but the geometry itself feels like handwriting, lines inscribed by an unseen author. As the questions accumulate, the moon ceases to feel like an object and becomes a presence, a shadowed mirror of our own uncertainty. It is both near and unreachable, silent, and yet speaking in rhythms that have guided every civilization. If it is a construct, then we live beneath the gaze of its architects. If it is natural, then the coincidences are staggering enough to feel intentional. And so the mind lingers in the threshold between belief and disbelief, suspended in a twilight of doubt where certainty dissolves. The moon's light continues to fall upon forests, oceans, and cities, indifferent and enduring. Perhaps in that pale glow lies an answer we are not yet ready to read, a scripture of stone orbiting endlessly, waiting for eyes that can see beyond its silence. Shadows cling to the surface of the moon, yet beneath those shadows rests a silence that has troubled both poets and physicists. It is not merely the stillness of airless plains, but a silence filled with echoes that defy reason. During the Apollo missions, seismic instruments left behind revealed something deeply unsettling. When spent modules or boosters were deliberately crashed onto the lunar surface, the moon reverberated for astonishingly long periods. Astronauts described it as ringing like a bell. a metaphor that found its way into reports and remains impossible to dismiss. In a world expected to quiver briefly and then fall back into silence, the prolonged resonance hints at a body less solid, less uniform, perhaps hollow in part, or threaded with vast cavities. This is not how a dead rock is supposed to respond. It is how something engineered, something with inner chambers, might behave. The idea of hollowness unsettles the imagination because it crosses the line from natural phenomenon to deliberate design. Hollow bodies are not accidents. They are containers, vessels, constructs. If the moon is hollow, then the possibility emerges that it serves a purpose beyond orbiting Earth. A vault, a ship, a station disguised as stone. Even if mainstream scientists caution that fractured rock layers and unusual density distributions can explain the resonance, the imagery of a ringing moon is too evocative to ignore. It suggests an artifact, a cosmic cathedral whose architecture vibrates like a struck gong. Who then built such a thing, and for what reason? Was it meant to last, to endure beyond the rise and fall of countless civilizations below? Ancient records appear to speak obliquely to this mystery. The Chaldeans called the moon Sin, a name resonating with knowledge, cycles, and hidden power. In Egypt, the god Thoth, linked to the moon, was not simply a deity of time, but the keeper of secret wisdom, the one who measured and weighed, who knew the mathematics of the cosmos. In these portrayals, the moon is not simply illumination, but calculation, a mechanism of order and judgment. Could it be that ancient priests, gazing at eclipses and cycles, intuited that the moon was a device, its presence too exact to be coincidence? They may not have known machinery, but they knew patterns, and patterns are often the fingerprint of intention. In modern times, certain anomalies deepen the unease. The distribution of mass within the moon is oddly inconsistent. Mascons, mass concentrations, lie beneath lunar maria, affecting spacecraft orbits in ways that were unexpected. These anomalies are so powerful that early missions nearly failed to maintain proper trajectories. What lies beneath those planes that weighs so heavily? Is it basalt, as most argue, or something else entirely, denser and more deliberate? If the moon is a shell covering a hidden structure, could these mascons be remnants of ancient machinery, anchors holding the orbit stable, or cores of alien alloys buried beneath layers of stone? Even if geology offers explanations, the suspicion lingers. Why should one body in our skies be filled with so many riddles? The far side of the moon only adds to the mystery. For ages, humanity saw only one face, the same familiar visage. It was not until 1959, when the Soviet Luna 3 probe captured the first grainy photographs, that the hidden hemisphere was revealed. What it showed was startling. A face utterly unlike the near side. Few Maria, no great dark plains, only rugged highlands scarred by craters. This asymmetry seems unnatural, as though the moon were crafted with one side to display and one side to conceal. Why should the near side be smoother, darker, weighted with mascons, while the far side remains jagged and aloof? Some have whispered that the moon presents a mask to Earth, a face designed for us to see while hiding its machinery, its true surface, behind its locked rotation. Theories of artificiality find strange support in myth. Among the Zulu of southern Africa, there are stories of a time before the moon, when the earth was bathed only in starlight. They tell of two brothers, Wawene and Mpanku, who rolled the moon into the sky, hollowed like an egg, bringing chaos and change to the world below. Such myths, often dismissed as allegory, carry uncanny echoes of technological imagery. An object hollowed, rolled into place, altering the planet forever. Could this be memory, distorted yet persistent, of a time when the moon was brought into orbit? If humanity once witnessed such an arrival, the memory might survive only in the guise of myth, buried in cultural stories that carry fragments of an older truth. Conflict arises when science insists upon boundaries. Lunar scientists assure us that mascons are the result of lava flows filling giant basins, that ringing is due to fractured rock behaving differently from Earth's hydrated crust, that tidal locking is the inevitable outcome of orbital mechanics. Yet these explanations, though satisfying on the surface, often feel like patchwork, tailored to fit anomalies without ever addressing the deeper improbability of their convergence. Why should one celestial body gather so many peculiarities? Why should so many cultures, separated by oceans and centuries, treat the moon not as a rock, but as an intelligence, a device, a presence that governs? At the height of the Cold War, rumors circulated that both American and Soviet space agencies knew more than they revealed. Some alleged that astronauts saw structures on the moon, towers, domes, or luminous formations that were quietly classified. While such claims often rest in the margins of speculation, they remain persistent. Even if most are dismissed, the very persistence suggests an undercurrent of unease. The moon resists closure, resists being explained away. It hangs in the night as both evidence and riddle, daring us to look longer, to question deeper. And then there is the matter of time itself. Fossil records indicate that Earth's rotation has been slowing, lengthening the day, due to tidal interactions with the moon. Without such influence, Earth's climate and biology might have unfolded along entirely different lines. Some scientists argue that complex life, perhaps even humanity itself, might not have arisen without the moon's stabilizing hand. If that is true, then the moon is not merely companion, but architect, shaping evolution, nudging biology along a path toward consciousness. Was this intentional? If so, the moon is not simply background scenery but a participant, a quiet shaper of destiny. Could the very rhythm of human thought, our sleep cycles, our tides of emotion be bound to a machine orbiting above? The climax of unease comes with the possibility that the moon is a sentinel. Its unblinking presence, its perfect orbit, its subtle control of Earth's fate. It all suggests the possibility of surveillance. If someone, some intelligence, placed it here, then perhaps we are not alone, nor have we ever been. Perhaps the moon is less a lamp and more a mirror, reflecting not only sunlight, but our own history back to us, recording, storing, watching. The very thought unsettles, for it suggests that our history is not entirely our own. The eye above may not be blind. And yet, when confronted with these thoughts, reason recoils. It is easier to believe in accidents than in architects, in geology than in guardians. It is easier to trust that the moon is dead, lifeless, indifferent. To believe otherwise is to accept that our world has been curated, that we live under the watch of powers older and greater than we imagine. But as the questions circle back, doubt persists. Could all of this be coincidence? The ringing, the symmetry, the myths, the alignments? Or do these fragments, gathered from stone and story, form the outline of a truth too immense for history to bear? As the pale orb rises each night, Steady and luminous, it carries both comfort and dread. Its glow silvers oceans, quiets forests, and pulls the tides in their eternal rhythm. Yet within that rhythm, one hears the faintest of whispers, that perhaps nothing is as it seems, that perhaps the moon is the mask of a deeper secret. And in that whisper lies an invitation to keep asking, to keep doubting, to keep wondering what lies beneath the silence that has haunted humanity since its first glance at the night sky. There is a peculiar stillness when the moon rises over ruins, a quiet insistence that the light we see is not merely reflection, but remembrance. Stones long abandoned to moss and sand seem to stir under its glow, as if they recognize an old companion, as if the moon has been watching their slow decay for thousands of years. Civilizations that left no written words left alignments, shadows, circles of stone and earth that trace lunar cycles with a devotion too exact to be accidental. In these silent monuments, the moon appears less like a satellite and more like a metronome, regulating not only time but belief, shaping the very rhythm of culture. Why, across continents, do so many ancient structures reach not only toward the sun, but toward the subtler pulse of the moon? In the Andes, the city of Tiwanaku lies in quiet ruin, yet its temples once tracked both solar and lunar risings with uncanny precision. The Gate of the Sun, carved from a single block of stone, bears markings that scholars still argue about. Some see a calendar of solar days, others believe it encodes lunar cycles, eclipses, perhaps even longer rhythms hidden in its glyphs. The people who built it vanished, their language scarcely remembered, their gods lost to dust. But the moon remains, rising as it did when Tiwanaku was alive, its light falling on the same stones. Was this alignment an act of devotion? Or was it an attempt to communicate with something that had always been present above? Further north, the Mayan city of Uxmal holds the Pyramid of the Magician, whose rounded sides face the path of the moon. Mayan scribes recorded lunar eclipses, predicted their return, and wove them into myths of rebirth and catastrophe. Their codices, though burned in conquest, speak in fragments of cycles longer than lifetimes, calculations so careful they seem almost beyond human patience. Did the Mayans discover such precision on their own? Or were they inheritors of knowledge older than their cities, older even than their gods? When they lifted their eyes to the moon, were they simply measuring shadows, or listening for something hidden in its rhythms? Across the sea, the megaliths of Karnak in Brittany stretch for miles, thousands of stones aligned in silent rows. Some archaeologists argue that these alignments mark solstices. Others whisper that they also trace lunar standstills, those rare events occurring every 18.6 years when the moon rises at its extreme northern or southern points. To measure such a cycle requires generations of observation, passing knowledge across centuries. How could scattered tribes, without writing, without mathematics as we know it, achieve such exactness? Unless, perhaps, they were driven by an urgency greater than agriculture, a sense that the moon itself demanded attention, that its cycle held meaning not just for harvest but for destiny. The moon's pull on human imagination is not limited to monuments. Ancient texts also speak of its presence with unease. In the Vedic hymns of India, Soma is both a drink of immortality and a lunar deity, a link between heaven and earth, intoxication and wisdom. The hymns sing of Soma being pressed, consumed, sacrificed, yet also of Soma's light, his guiding presence in the sky. Was this duality an echo of something literal, a reminder that the moon was both sustenance and overseer, both natural and artificial? Could the rituals of Soma, the chants and fires, have been attempts to engage with an intelligence believed to dwell within that pale orb? Conflict emerges when one looks at the impossibility of these parallels. How is it that cultures separated by oceans, who never met, never traded, nonetheless placed the moon at the heart of their cosmologies, and with similar reverence? Mainstream history insists that such parallels are coincidence, born of human psychology, of the common need to measure time and tell stories. Yet the coincidences multiply. Temples aligned with lunar risings, myths of gods dwelling on the moon, tales of a time before the moon existed. The further one looks, the more the line between memory and myth blurs. Are these merely stories, or are they fragments of testimony retold until their origin was forgotten? In the modern age, telescopes revealed the moon's geography with precision, but mystery did not vanish. Instead, new questions arose. Craters showed peculiarities, some too shallow, others rimmed with sharpness inconsistent with random impacts. Lunar Maria, vast plains of basalt, stretch mostly across the near side, as if weighted deliberately. The moon is locked in a perfect embrace with Earth, one face always turned toward us. Scientists explain this as tidal locking, a simple matter of gravity and time. But how long does coincidence remain coincidence before it suggests design? The moon's orbit stabilizes Earth's tilt, moderates climate, and allows life to flourish. Without it, Earth might be a barren world of chaos. Is this only luck? Or is the moon a mechanism placed to ensure habitability, a guardian disguised as stone? During the 1960s and 70s, when Apollo astronauts walked upon its dust, more anomalies emerged. Instruments left behind recorded seismic activity not caused by impacts, but by something internal, something like pulses. The moon rang for hours after impacts, a fact that unsettled the very scientists who studied it. This was not behavior expected of a natural satellite. Hollow bodies resonate. Constructed bodies resonate. Yet the official explanations were careful, muted, unwilling to draw conclusions beyond fractured geology. Still, the idea lingered. What if the moon is a container, a vast hollow filled with chambers, its outer shell merely a disguise? The climax of this tension comes when we consider the possibility of purpose. If the moon is an artifact, then it was placed with intent. Who placed it, and why? Was it to guide evolution, to stabilize Earth, to act as a beacon? Or was it to watch, to monitor, to record? Some theorists suggest that the moon is a sentinel, transmitting or storing data, a silent eye in orbit. Others argue it could be an ark, carrying life across cosmic distances, seeded into Earth's cradle when conditions were right. If true, then humanity itself may be the offspring of a greater design, born not of accident, but of calculation. And yet, science resists. Geologists remind us of basalt flows, astronomers of orbital dynamics, physicists of probability. The moon does not need to be a machine to be remarkable. But the heart resists such comfort. It is not only science, but intuition that whispers otherwise. When the moon eclipses the sun in perfect symmetry, revealing the corona in fiery rings, the precision feels deliberate, as though designed for spectacle. No other known pairing of planet and moon in our system creates such exact beauty. Why here? Why now? Why us? The moon gazes down with indifference, silvering oceans, bleaching deserts, haunting forests. Its light falls equally on temples, on cities, on ruins, on graves. It is silent, and yet its silence is never empty. In that silence, civilizations have built, dreamed, and doubted. Perhaps the moon is only rock, and our questions are only projections of longing. Or perhaps the moon is more than we can yet accept, its stillness concealing a story that has been unfolding since before history began. And so the question remains, unanswered, luminous, eternal. What truly watches from that pale face above? The moon has always been both familiar and estranged, a body whose face we know intimately, yet whose essence remains elusive. It drifts above cities and deserts alike, casting its silver veil, but what it conceals beneath its quiet glow is not easily dismissed. As humanity advanced into the age of spaceflight, that estrangement deepened. The closer we drew, the stranger it became. For those who first crossed the void and touched its dust, the moon was not simply barren. It was uncanny, as though it were both ancient and waiting, like a monument that had endured too long, holding secrets no one was prepared to read. One of the most unsettling discoveries came not from what was seen, but from what was felt. Seismic instruments left behind by Apollo missions revealed a body that did not behave like Earth, nor like the rocky moons of Mars. When struck, whether by lunar modules or by meteor impacts, the moon reverberated for astonishing durations. Scientists described it as ringing like a bell, a phrase that quickly escaped the technical reports and settled into popular imagination. Though mainstream geophysics suggested explanations, fractured rock, unusual internal structure, the metaphor lingers because it resonates with something older, something remembered in myth. The idea of a hollow shell, an artifact, an object not entirely natural. If the moon rings like a bell, what hand once cast it, and what music lies within its silence? Equally strange are the patterns of craters that scar its surface. On Earth, impacts of different sizes dig to varying depths, gouging craters deeper as energy increases. Yet on the moon, craters of vastly different diameters often reach similar depths, as though beneath the dust lies a resistant barrier. A metallic crust? A protective layer? Or perhaps the hardened remains of machinery buried beneath eons of regolith. While geology explains these anomalies as results of dense rock layers, the visual effect remains troubling. The moon looks bruised, yet unbroken, a surface battered but never fully penetrated. If it is armor, who forged it, and what lies beneath? Legends seem to echo these suspicions. In the mythology of the Zulu, there are stories of a time before the moon, when Earth was illuminated only by the sun and stars. Two brothers, Wawane and Mpanku, were said to have stolen the moon, hollowed it like an egg, and rolled it across the heavens, changing the balance of the world. Such imagery of hollowing, rolling, altering seems technological rather than purely poetic. Could this be a memory of an ancient event, refracted through the language of story, when the moon entered Earth's orbit not as a natural accident but as an intervention? If so, the human experience of the sky itself has been curated, our world altered in ways we barely understand. Across oceans, similar echoes appear. In Mesoamerican myth, the gods sacrificed themselves to create the sun and moon, their bodies transformed into celestial lights. In Greek lore, Selene drives her chariot nightly across the sky, her pale face luminous with power. The persistence of lunar deities across cultures speaks not only to shared imagination, but perhaps to shared memory. Why should the moon, more than any other celestial body, be personified as conscious, as watchful, as divine? Why does it so often appear as an agent rather than a backdrop? If humanity once experienced the moon not as distant stone, but as presence, perhaps even as machine, then myth may preserve that memory, encoded in allegory. Conflict arises sharply in the 20th century, when photographs of the moon revealed strange features that defied easy categorization. Astronomers reported transient lunar phenomena, flashes of light, glowing mists, reddish glows near craters, and even patterns resembling geometric structures. These observations, catalogued over centuries, were often dismissed as atmospheric distortion, faulty instruments, or human error. Yet the persistence of such reports suggests something more than imagination. If the moon is a device, could these be signals, vents, or adjustments from mechanisms deep within? Could the lights be indicators of life, or activity, or the remnants of a system still faintly alive? The debate sharpened during the Cold War. Both the United States and the Soviet Union raced to reach the moon, but their ambitions faltered sooner than expected. Apollo ended abruptly. Missions canceled despite apparent success. Officially, funding and politics were to blame. Unofficially, whispers grew that something had been found, something too disturbing to pursue further. There are rumors of astronauts encountering anomalies, photographs quietly archived, reports of structures or objects not explained by geology. While such claims remain unproven, they persist with an almost mythic insistence, feeding the suspicion that humanity withdrew not from triumph, but from warning. At the same time, scientists Mikhail Vasin and Alexander Sherbakov in the Soviet Union advanced a hypothesis that still provokes unease: that the moon is not natural at all, but an artificial satellite, perhaps hollowed, perhaps constructed, placed deliberately into orbit. They pointed to its low density, its unusual orbital mechanics, its improbable stability. Though the scientific community largely rejected their proposal, the questions remain. If the moon is a construct, then its age exceeds our civilizations, its technology older than any known culture. Could it be a relic of a vanished race, or a beacon left by travelers from beyond our world? Could it be both protector and prison, ensuring Earth's habitability while silently overseeing its inhabitants? And yet science offers counterpoints. Gravity explains orbital locks, geology explains craters, basalt flows explain maskins. One can dismiss anomalies as curiosities, coincidences, misinterpretations. To accept the moon as artificial is to step outside the comfort of physics into the disquiet of speculation. But even within science, there are concessions. Without the moon, Earth's axis would wander, seasons would shift violently, climate would destabilize. Life as we know it may never have evolved. Whether natural or not, the moon's presence is so perfectly tuned to life's flourishing that it seems intentional. Is this only chance? Or does intention hide within chance itself, written in orbits and tides? Consider eclipses, perhaps the most striking of all. The moon is 400 times smaller than the sun, yet 400 times closer, allowing it to cover the solar disk with eerie perfection. No other known planet-moon pairing creates such spectacle. To ancient priests, this was proof of divine order. To astronomers, it is coincidence, But the symmetry is uncanny, as though designed to force human eyes upward, to stage a cosmic theater of light and shadow. What hand arranges such geometry, and why? Is it only accident that eclipses reveal the solar corona, the hidden flame of the sun, or is it invitation, a revelation encoded into the very mechanics of the sky? As these questions converge, a picture begins to form, not of certainty, but of tension, a balance between skepticism and suspicion. The moon may be natural, or it may be altered. It may be ancient rock or ancient machine. It may be both. A natural body repurposed, a wandering stone captured and then transformed. Such possibilities unsettle because they suggest design, and design implies designers. Who were they? Gods? Visitors? Ancestors forgotten? And if they placed the moon, where are they now? Watching from within, gone into the stars? Or hidden in silence, their work enduring long after their presence vanished? The moon rises, night after night, indifferent to our doubts. Its light falls on ruins, on seas, on towers of glass, on the graves of empires. It does not answer, it only persists. And yet in its persistence, the question lingers like a pulse, like a heartbeat muffled by stone. Perhaps the moon is only rock. Perhaps it is more. The truth may be hidden beneath layers of dust, or within chambers that resonate like bells struck in silence. Whatever it is, it remains the oldest companion of humanity, both familiar and strange, a guardian or a mask, a mirror or a machine. And as long as it hangs above us, the question cannot be silenced. What truly dwells within that pale, unblinking face? There are moments in human history when silence weighs more than sound, when absence itself becomes an answer too unsettling to confront. The moon, though so close, remains such an absence. For half a century, no human has walked its plains, no footstep pressed into its dust since Apollo's final retreat. It waits in stillness, unchanged yet not forgotten, as though suspended between myth and memory. And the question grows sharper with each decade. Why did we stop? Was it merely the burden of cost? Or did we glimpse something that made continuation undesirable, even dangerous? The silence itself becomes a clue, as though a decision was made to let the moon sleep undisturbed, its secrets too heavy to carry further. Fragments of testimony stir unease. Astronauts spoke cautiously, their words measured, but between the lines, shadows emerge. Lights glimmering on the horizon, strange shapes at crater edges, radio transmissions filled with interference as though obscured by another presence. Official accounts dismissed such anomalies as technical faults, reflections, imagination under strain. Yet rumors persisted, whispered in interviews, suggested in hesitant recollections, that the moon was not empty. If such impressions were true, then perhaps Apollo's retreat was not voluntary but compelled, a quiet step back from something humanity was not prepared to meet. Meanwhile, on Earth, ancient records echo with strange familiarity. The Samhita texts of India describe celestial vehicles, vimanas, shining chariots that moved with the brilliance of moons. In some translations, they are said to rise from lunar stations, as though the moon itself was once a harbor. In Mesopotamian myth, the god Sin, master of the moon, presided over fate and timing, his temples aligned with cosmic cycles. If these traditions encode memory rather than imagination, then perhaps humanity's earliest civilizations were already in dialogue with something that the moon embodied. The notion of the moon as a station, a machine, or a watchtower would not be new. It would only be forgotten. The geological anomalies continue to disturb. The near side, so familiar, bears vast maria, dark basalt plains filling giant basins. Yet the far side is rugged, thick with highlands, its crust far denser. Why should one face differ so greatly from the other? Scientists propose that tidal heating, impacts, and crustal thickness shaped this disparity. But one cannot ignore the impression. A facade presented to Earth, smoother, weighted with mascons, designed almost like armor. It is as though the moon shows a mask, a sculpted face for our gaze, while concealing its truer form behind. The far side, hidden from Earth, feels less like coincidence and more like secrecy. Conflict sharpens when considering the origin theories themselves. The giant impact hypothesis, once dominant, posits that a body collided with Earth, flinging debris that coalesced into the moon. Yet isotopic analysis of lunar rocks tells a different story. They are nearly identical to Earth's mantle, far more alike than such a collision should produce. The capture theory struggles with orbital dynamics, the co-formation theory with chemistry. Every model frays at the edges, and in those frayed edges, suspicion grows. If natural explanations falter, is it reckless or reasonable to consider unnatural ones? Could the moon have been placed rather than formed? Could it have been introduced deliberately, its orbit tuned with mathematical care? The climax of unease emerges when one considers the consequences of its presence. Without the moon, Earth's tilt would wobble chaotically, climates swing violently, seasons destabilize. With it, stability prevails, the axis held steady, days lengthening, tides regulating the pulse of life. Fossil evidence suggests that shortly after the moon settled into orbit, life diversified dramatically. Coincidence, perhaps, but suggestive nonetheless. Was the moon not only a guardian, but also a catalyst, a deliberate intervention to guide evolution, to cultivate intelligence? If so, then humanity itself may be an extension of its purpose, a creation shaped not only by Earth, but by the machinery above it. This possibility blurs the line between myth and science. The Greeks spoke of Selene, luminous and watchful, driving her chariot across the night sky. The Egyptians honored Thoth, lunar keeper of wisdom, mathematics, and writing. In Chinese lore, Chang'e lived upon the moon, exiled yet eternal, a figure of both loss and illumination. Across cultures, the moon is never inert. It is always alive, conscious, and potent. Could these myths be reflections of an older truth? That the moon was never merely a rock, but always a presence, an intelligence, or a device? Humanity's instinct to personify may conceal memory, the recognition that the moon is more than it appears. Yet doubt persists, gnawing at the edges of certainty. For each anomaly, science offers an answer. Mascons as basalt, resonance as fractured rock, orbit as gravity's inevitable outcome. But each answer leaves a residue, a sense that the explanation, though plausible, is incomplete. Like patches sewn over torn fabric, they cover, but do not erase the holes. The moon remains anomalous even when explained, as though its very strangeness is its disguise. Perhaps that is its function, to appear natural, to hide in plain sight, to make its guardianship invisible. One cannot ignore the suggestion of surveillance. The moon's synchronous orbit ensures that one hemisphere always faces Earth, unblinking, unchanging, as though designed to watch. If the moon is a sentinel, then its gaze has never faltered. For millions of years, it has turned the same face toward us, indifferent to the rise and fall of civilizations. If it is a machine, then perhaps it has been recording, storing, transmitting. Humanity, in its youth, may never have understood. But perhaps the architects were not interested in our understanding. Perhaps it was enough that we lived under its watch, our progress measured, our destiny observed. And so the moon becomes not only a riddle, but a mirror, reflecting back our doubts, our myths, our fears. It reveals as much about us as about itself. To believe it artificial is to accept that we are not alone, that our history has been curated, our planet adjusted, our evolution influenced. To reject the idea is to embrace coincidence upon coincidence, to place faith in randomness that nonetheless feels like orchestration. Neither answer comforts. Both leave us with unease. As the moon rises tonight, pale and steady, it carries the weight of these questions without offering resolution. Its light falls on forests, oceans, ruins, and towers, as it has for all of history. Its silence endures, indifferent yet provocative. Perhaps it is only rock, scarred by time. Perhaps it is more, a machine disguised as stone, an artifact orbiting endlessly, its purpose hidden in plain sight. The truth remains veiled, a secret suspended above us, luminous yet unreachable. And in that veil lies a question that has haunted humanity since its first glance skyward. If the moon was placed, then by whom? And for what destiny does it still wait? The moon drifts above us, silent and unchanging, and yet its history is entangled with whispers of intervention and memory too strange to dismiss. Its presence shapes every tide, every season, every rhythm of sleep and dream. But the question that lingers is whether it was meant to. To look at the moon is to see coincidence layered upon coincidence, until coincidence begins to resemble intention. And in that fragile space between accident and design, imagination falters into unease. Some traditions hint at a time before the moon existed in our sky. The ancient Greeks recorded accounts from Aristotle and Plutarch of Arcadian tribes who remembered a world without it, when the heavens were lit only by stars. The Colombian Muisca people spoke of a chaotic age before the moon, when the balance of the world was incomplete. Such myths, scattered across geography and culture, repeat with startling consistency. There was a time when the moon was absent, and then it was there. How could such memory persist across continents unless it marked some transformation so vast, so unforgettable, that even myth could not erase it? If the moon was introduced into orbit, then humanity's sky itself was altered in an event of unimaginable scale, a reset so profound that it became myth's deepest root. Geological evidence stirs the same questions. Ancient corals and shell fossils suggest that Earth's days were once shorter, its rotation faster. Over eons, the moon's pull has lengthened days, slowed the spin, stabilized the tilt. Life, adjusting to these rhythms, evolved differently than it might have otherwise. Could it be that complex life arose precisely because the moon was there to regulate? Was it accident or intervention? If intervention, then our very existence is no longer self-contained, but entwined with the machinery of something far greater. To think of the moon as an artifact is to think of humanity as a project, a garden tended under careful, invisible light. Myth and science collide in the patterns left upon the land. Stone circles, carvings, temples, all aligned not only with the sun, but with lunar cycles of uncanny accuracy. At Nabta Playa in Egypt, megaliths trace celestial alignments older than Stonehenge, their markers pointing not only to solstices, but to lunar risings. In Chaco Canyon, Spiral petroglyphs glow with dagger-like shafts of sunlight during solstices, but beside them crescents appear, lunar symbols etched with equal precision. To track the moon's 18.6-year standstill cycle requires generations of observation. Yet the builders inscribed it into stone, as if compelled by knowledge older than their culture, or by instructions whispered from beyond. Did they observe patiently for centuries, or did they inherit what had already been mapped? The monuments do not answer. They only hum with the same silence as the moon above them. Conflict arises in the tension between the mainstream view of the moon as chance outcome and the alternative that it was deliberately placed. Scientists insist on natural origins, impact, co-formation, or capture. Yet each theory stumbles. The impact hypothesis cannot fully explain the isotopic sameness between Earth and Moon. The capture theory struggles with orbital dynamics too precise for coincidence. Co-formation falters when confronted with density differences, and so science patches its models while anomalies continue to multiply. How many anomalies must exist before suspicion takes root? At what point does probability bend into design? If the moon is a construct, then all of history is framed within its architecture, all myth merely memory of its unveiling. There are reports, faint and fleeting, of strange phenomena still occurring on the moon. Astronomers across centuries recorded transient lunar phenomena, flares of light, shifting glows, mists that appeared and faded. Even modern instruments occasionally detect flashes unexplained by impacts. The moon, supposedly dead, sometimes seems alive. Could these be relics of inner workings, machinery stirring faintly, still adjusting itself after billions of years? Or are they only accidents of light, illusions magnified by our need for answers? The unease lingers because the moon is too close, too constant, too essential. We cannot escape its gaze, nor its silence. The climax of unease sharpens when humanity's retreat from the moon is recalled. The Apollo missions ended suddenly, leaving questions unasked, doors unopened. We turned away from our nearest neighbor and have not returned in half a century. Political explanations abound, but the silence is louder than the words. If something was found there, structures, signals, warnings, then the retreat would make sense. Better to leave the moon as monument than risk shattering the illusion of emptiness. Yet the unanswered question remains, pressing harder with every year we remain grounded. What lies in the dust we chose not to disturb further. And so the moon hovers as both promise and threat. If it is a machine, then it watches us still. If it is a monument, then it bears witness to ages before memory. If it is a seed, then we are its harvest. Its face shines each night, indifferent to our wonder, yet weighted with all the myths and suspicions we cannot silence. Perhaps it is only stone. Perhaps it is an artifact. But in either case, its presence feels deliberate, and our history feels smaller beneath its light. As the moon rises tonight, casting its silver over oceans and mountains, its glow remains the same as it was for the first humans who gazed upward and wondered. It has not changed, and yet everything has changed because of it. If it is only coincidence, then coincidence has the shape of intention. If it is design, then design is indistinguishable from fate. The truth remains locked behind its pale mask, hidden in silence that stretches across billions of years. And so we are left with the same question whispered by ancients and astronauts alike. Is the moon watching? And if so, what does it remember? The moon has always felt like a mirror, reflecting not only the light of the sun, but also the hidden longings of humanity. When its pale disk rises, it seems less like a cold object and more like a presence, a silent observer that has shaped stories, rituals, and fears across every land. Yet beyond the myth and poetry lies a troubling question. What if the moon is not only a mirror, but also a mask? What if its familiar glow conceals layers of intent, purpose, and technology as old as the planet itself? Each age has searched for answers, and each answer has dissolved into mystery. One thread of evidence comes from ancient architecture, where alignments with the moon are not occasional, but deliberate and insistent. At the prehistoric site of Callanish in the Outer Hebrides, stone rows align not just with the sun, but with the moon's extreme risings during its 18.6-year cycle. Observing such a cycle requires patience across generations, yet those alignments endure, carved into landscapes where lives were short and fragile. Why dedicate so much to mapping a cycle so long unless it was believed to matter beyond farming or ritual? Why measure the moon with such care unless the moon itself was more than a light in the sky? It is as though ancient societies were compelled to mark the patterns of an object whose importance was both cosmic and intimate, as though they were instructed to pay attention. In Mesoamerica, the moon played a central role in myths of creation and destruction. The Aztecs believed that two gods sacrificed themselves to become the sun and moon, and that their balance determined the order of time. The Maya recorded lunar eclipses with extraordinary precision, embedding them into codices as both astronomical data and prophecy. Eclipses were not mere accidents, but signs, disruptions in a cosmic order too precise to ignore. The moon, in these traditions, was an agent, an actor in the drama of history. It was not a backdrop, but a participant. Was this only myth-making, or did these cultures inherit a memory that the moon itself had once revealed its agency more directly? Even in modern times, anomalies persist that resist dismissal. Transient lunar phenomena, mysterious flashes, glows, or mists, have been observed by astronomers for centuries. Craters like Aristarchus have been notorious for strange lights, often described as luminous clouds or glowing regions. Mainstream explanations cite impacts, gas releases, or visual illusions. But these reports are too numerous, too widespread, too enduring to be cast aside so easily. If the moon were a machine, or if hidden installations lie beneath its crust, might such lights be emissions, operations, or adjustments too subtle for us to interpret? Could they be signs of machinery still humming faintly after billions of years? The conflict between scientific caution and speculative imagination is sharpest in the details of lunar structure. The moon's density is low compared to Earth, its crust thicker on the far side, its interior strangely inconsistent. The presence of mascons beneath lunar Maria puzzled engineers in the 1960s, nearly disrupting spacecraft orbits. Such anomalies are officially attributed to dense lava flows, but they also resemble the distribution of hidden weight, ballast placed with purpose. If the moon is a construct, then perhaps its interior is less geological than mechanical, its mass distributed to maintain balance in orbit. Could the moon be not only hollow, but stabilized, tuned like an instrument to remain locked in its role as Earth's eternal companion? In Soviet thought, the idea was made explicit. Vassin and Shcherbakov proposed the spaceship moon hypothesis in the 1970s, suggesting that the moon could be a hollowed-out planetoid, retrofitted by unknown beings. While their peers dismissed the idea, it drew from real anomalies: its ringing resonance, its improbable orbit, its shallow craters. They imagined the moon as a colossal vessel, disguised beneath eons of dust. Whether such a vision is credible or not, it forces us to confront the possibility that what seems inert may be deliberate. The moon may not only reflect sunlight, but also conceal intent. Climax comes when considering the role of eclipses. The moon is precisely the right size and distance to cover the sun in perfect alignment, revealing the corona in a spectacle unlike anything else in our solar system. Astronomers call this coincidence. But coincidence does not erase the impression of theater. The moon is 400 times smaller than the sun, but 400 times closer. Its presence creates a perfect symmetry that has influenced religion, myth, and science alike. Why should such precision exist here, on this world, where beings capable of asking questions about it have arisen? Could it be that eclipses are not accidents, but messages, designed moments of revelation scripted into the heavens? Ancient records describe eclipses as omens of catastrophe or transformation. Priests saw them as interventions of the gods, moments when the balance between light and darkness was tested. Today, science explains them with geometry, but the geometry itself remains haunting. It is one thing to calculate an alignment, another to accept that such an alignment happens at all. Is it accident that the only total solar eclipses in our system occur on the one world where consciousness has flowered, where beings look up and wonder? Or is this symmetry itself a hint of hidden architecture, a celestial riddle disguised as chance? And still the moon remains silent. It offers no answers, only light. It waits, orbiting, showing us the same face as it has for millions of years. If it is a machine, then its patience is immeasurable. If it is natural, then its coincidences are staggering. Either way, it holds its secrets as carefully as it holds its orbit, unbroken and eternal. Humanity is left only with questions. Is the moon a mirror or a mask, a guardian or a ghost, a machine or a monument? Perhaps the truth is all of these at once, layered like the dust upon its plains. The moon is ancient stone and possible artifact, myth and machine, coincidence and design. Its silence may not be emptiness but restraint, the quiet of something too vast to reveal itself all at once. And so it endures, its glow falling on deserts, oceans, and ruins, whispering the same question into every generation. Is it we who watch the moon, or the moon that has always been watching us? The moon is more than a companion in the night sky. It is a paradox. Its stillness feels eternal, but its influence is intimate, threading through every tide and season, every ritual of planting, every rhythm of waking and dreaming. To live on Earth is to live in the pull of the moon. Yet the more carefully one studies its presence, the more the paradox deepens. For the moon behaves too precisely, fits too perfectly, and lingers too mysteriously to be dismissed as chance alone. If coincidence upon coincidence begins to feel like design, then the moon becomes not only an object of wonder, but an artifact of purpose. One of the strangest patterns lies in its synchronous orbit. The moon turns exactly once on its axis for every orbit around Earth, forever showing us the same face. Astronomers explain this as tidal locking, a common outcome of gravitational interaction. but the precision of it unsettles. One hemisphere, scarred with Maria and mascons, is all we ever see. The other, rugged and high, remains hidden, revealed only by machines we have sent to map it. Was this perfect symmetry only the slow outcome of natural forces, or does it resemble a deliberate orientation, as though the moon was positioned to watch, to display, to conceal? The myths of the world often hint at such duality. In Chinese lore, Chang'e dwells upon the moon, forever gazing down, her exile a reminder that what is above is never wholly apart from what is below. The Greeks gave the moon many names: Selene, Artemis, Hecate, each reflecting a different aspect: light, hunt, shadow. In these myths, the moon is both nurturing and dangerous, both revealing and withholding. If such archetypes arise not from imagination alone, but from memory, then perhaps cultures across ages intuited the moon's dual role: a face offered and a face hidden, a guardian and a gatekeeper. Modern exploration did little to silence the unease. Apollo missions brought back rocks, dust, and data, yet they also raised questions more profound than they answered. Lunar rocks proved nearly identical in isotopic composition to Earth, far too similar for a captured body or even a collision origin. This sameness suggests that the moon and Earth share a history deeper than expected, almost as if the moon was carved from Earth itself, or designed to mimic it so precisely that the disguise could not be distinguished. If it was meant to appear familiar, then who ensured such a likeness, and why? Other anomalies remain no less troubling. Craters, shallow compared to their size, suggest that impacts were arrested by a dense layer below the surface. Seismic tests revealed reverberations lasting far longer than expected, as though the moon's interior were less solid, more resonant, perhaps even hollow. Mascons beneath lunar Maria distort orbits with unusual strength, as though dense ballast lies beneath. Scientists explain each anomaly separately: basalt flows, fractured crust, uneven density. But when taken together, they form a pattern of strangeness too consistent to ignore. The moon behaves not as a passive rock, but as an object with properties carefully arranged, as though tuned to perform its role. The climax of strangeness is found in eclipses. Only here, on this planet, does the moon's size and distance create a perfect match with the sun. 400 times smaller, 400 times closer. The symmetry is exact, allowing the sun's corona to blaze forth only when the moon aligns. Astronomers assure us this is coincidence, yet it is a coincidence of staggering improbability. Ancient peoples read eclipses as omens, messages from gods. Today we see them as geometry, but the geometry itself carries the scent of intention. Why should such alignment exist in the one place where beings capable of perceiving it have arisen? Was this symmetry an accident of cosmic scales, or is it a sign of a design meant to draw our gaze upward, to provoke awe, to force us to ask? Conflict grows sharper when we consider the silence of recent decades. After Apollo, humanity stepped back. No one has walked on the moon since 1972. Plans were drawn, missions proposed, but none fulfilled. Was it only the cost, the politics of the Cold War fading? Or was there something else? A discovery too disturbing, a warning too subtle to record. Whispers persist of astronauts witnessing strange lights, hearing unaccounted for sounds, encountering shapes or structures that official reports never confirmed. Rumor fills the gaps left by silence, and the silence itself feels like evidence. If there was nothing to fear, why did we not return? Some theorists argue the moon is a sentinel, placed not only to stabilize Earth, but to observe it. Its unchanging face watches us, its orbit measures us, its presence shapes us. If this is true, then the moon is not merely companion but overseer. Humanity lives under its gaze, its history shaped under its light. Evolution itself may have unfolded under its design, guided by tides, rhythms, and eclipses scripted into existence. To imagine the moon as machine is to imagine ourselves as subjects of its purpose, our story written not only on Earth, but in the technology that circles above. Others whisper that the moon is a vault, carrying the remnants of a civilization older than our own. If hollow, its chambers could preserve knowledge, artifacts, or even life across the ages. Perhaps the moon is an ark, seeding Earth with the conditions for life when the time was right. If so, then we are its descendants, not merely children of Earth, but children of a design written in stone and orbit. Myth may be memory of that intervention, retold as divine descent, as gods who came from the sky to teach and then withdrew, leaving behind the watcher that has never left. And yet, the skeptical voice persists. Science explains, or tries, geology answers, or covers, coincidence insists on its rule, but each explanation leaves a residue, a trace of incompleteness. Perhaps the moon is natural, and our suspicions are shadows of our need for meaning. Or perhaps the moon is more than natural, and the shadows are not illusions, but hints of a truth too vast to accept. The line between skepticism and belief is thin, and the moon sits upon it like a blade of light. Each night, its glow returns, indifferent yet intimate, casting silver on forests, seas, and cities. Its silence remains, but silence is not absence. It is presence withheld, knowledge waiting, intention concealed. Whether rock or machine, accident or design, the moon endures as humanity's most ancient riddle. And the riddle deepens with each gaze, each question, each whisper beneath its glow. Perhaps it will never answer. Perhaps the silence is the answer. And perhaps that is the most unsettling truth of all, that we live under a mask of stone, orbiting endlessly, watching us as we watch it, reflecting not only sunlight, but the question that has no end. The moon's silence has always been louder than its light. For every question we ask, it offers no reply, only reflection. And yet within that silence lie anomalies too numerous, too persistent to be ignored. We stand beneath it as our ancestors once did, gazing upward with awe and suspicion, caught between the certainty of science and the haunting pull of myth. If the moon is a construct, then it is the greatest artifact in the human story, a machine so vast and enduring that it has disguised itself as nature. If it is not, then coincidence has woven itself into patterns so exact that they feel indistinguishable from intention. One of the strangest dimensions of this riddle is the moon's role in timing. The length of Earth's day, the rhythm of tides, the stability of climate, all are tuned by its presence. Fossils of ancient corals reveal that in the distant past, days were far shorter. The moon's pull has gradually slowed Earth's rotation, lengthening the day to what it is now. Without it, Earth would wobble wildly, its tilt shifting, its climates unstable. Complex life might never have arisen. Was this tuning merely the natural consequence of chance, or was it a deliberate calibration? If the moon is a mechanism, then perhaps its purpose has been precisely this: to stabilize, to nurture, to cultivate life until intelligence could emerge. Ancient texts, read in this light, take on new resonance. The Sumerians spoke of Nana, the lunar god, who measured destinies and governed cycles. His temple at Ur was aligned with both the heavens and the moon's path, as if to bind human fate to celestial order. In Vedic hymns, Soma was both the moon and a divine elixir, the source of life and immortality. The Egyptians linked Thoth, god of wisdom and writing, to lunar power, as though knowledge itself descended from that pale orb. These traditions echo across centuries. The moon is not just a reflector of sunlight, but a regulator, a source of balance, a mechanism that determines order itself. If the ancients sensed something in its presence, were they perceiving what we have only begun to suspect? That the moon governs life not by chance, but by design? Conflict sharpens when one considers the gaps in official narratives. Astronauts spoke of a silence unlike any other, of horizons that shimmered, of lights glimmering in craters. Some described a feeling of being observed, though in public they remained careful, cautious, vague. Seismic instruments recorded vibrations far longer than expected, reverberations that suggested hollowness or vast cavities within. Engineers encountered difficulties with orbital trajectories disturbed by mascons. Photographs revealed unusual structures, fleeting and unexplained. All these anomalies were filed, explained away, dismissed. Yet the unease remains. Were these fragments of a deeper truth, or only illusions? And if they were only illusions, why does the moon's mystery refuse to fade? Consider the possibility of concealment. If the moon is a construct, it was built to last. Dust is gathered for billions of years, disguising whatever lies beneath. Impacts have scarred its face, but never revealed its core. If it houses machinery, that machinery has endured beyond the rise and fall of entire galaxies. The persistence itself is unsettling. Nothing built by human hands could endure so long. What intelligence, then, could construct such a monument? And what purpose could require it to remain in orbit for billions of years? If the moon is not only a machine but a watchtower, then its patience outstrips all human understanding. The climax of this unease comes when imagining the moon not as guardian, but as recorder. What if it is not here to protect, but to observe? Its synchronous orbit ensures it never blinks, never turns away. From the first spark of life, to the first city, to the first satellite, the moon has watched. If it is a sentinel, then perhaps every sound, every rhythm, every signal has been archived. The myths of gods watching from above may not be allegory, but memory. Humanity may have been under observation since its beginning, its progress measured against criteria we do not yet understand. And if this is true, what happens when the measure is complete? Skepticism responds with calculation, tidal locking, orbital resonance, mascons, seismic behavior. Each can be explained without recourse to design. Geology offers answers, physics provides equations, probability fills the gaps. The moon does not need to be a machine to be remarkable. Yet these explanations, though precise, feel incomplete. They account for pieces but not the whole. They answer questions but never silence them. The moon remains anomalous even when explained, as though explanation itself is part of its disguise. And so the tension deepens. If the moon is natural, its coincidences are staggering. If it is artificial, its implications are overwhelming. Either way, humanity stands small beneath it, caught between wonder and fear. To dismiss its mystery is to ignore the unease that has haunted civilizations for millennia. To embrace its mystery is to accept that history itself may be incomplete, that our world may not be as self-contained as we believe. The moon is both presence and absence, both mirror and mask, both answer and question. As its light falls tonight upon oceans, forests, and cities, the moon offers no resolution. It only endures, indifferent yet intimate, patient yet enigmatic. Its silence is not empty. It is full of weight, full of suggestion. Perhaps it is only stone. Perhaps it is more. Perhaps it is both. But whatever it is, it remains the oldest riddle above us, unblinking, eternal, a secret orbiting endlessly through the night. And as long as it shines, the question will remain, haunting every generation that dares to look up. What is the moon, and what purpose does it serve? The moon has lingered above humanity's story like a second heart, silent yet unceasing, always there and always watching. From the first fire-lit nights when hunters whispered their fears beneath its glow, to the age of machines and rockets that carried us briefly to its surface, it has remained unchanged. And yet, beneath that stillness lies a current of suspicion that has never been silenced. The moon does not simply exist, it insinuates, unsettles, and invites questions too vast to answer. If it is an artifact, then it is the most enduring construct in our skies. If it is not, then it is the most improbable accident in the cosmos, an accident so perfect that it masquerades as design. The myths of many cultures have always known the moon as something more than stone. The Egyptians tied it to Thoth, keeper of wisdom and balance. The Greeks spoke of Artemis, guardian of thresholds and secrets. The Inca revered Mama Quila, Mother Moon, whose power extended over calendars, fertility, and time itself. These figures were not passive, they were active, powerful, guiding. Could it be that humanity's impulse to worship the moon was less about its light and more about a deeper instinct, a recognition that something above was not merely natural but intentional? As science advanced, we gained detail but not certainty. Seismographs revealed the moon's strange resonance, as though its body rang with an unnatural echo. Crater depths suggested hidden resistance beneath the surface. Maskens distorted orbits as though weighted from below. Photographs showed lights, mists, flashes, phenomena that refused easy explanation. Each anomaly was noted, dismissed, and archived, yet together they form a pattern of disquiet. The moon is not simply a rock. It is a question made manifest. And then there is the matter of symmetry. The moon is precisely the right size and distance to cover the sun's disk in eclipse, 400 times smaller, 400 times closer, an equation that creates perfection. No other moon in our system does this. No other world experiences such spectacle. Was this coincidence, or was it intention? Was it arranged so that one day, when human eyes evolved to wonder, we would look up and be forced to ask the unthinkable? Ancient priests saw omens in eclipses, visions of endings and beginnings. Today, we explain them with geometry, but geometry itself whispers of design. If the moon is artificial, then its purpose remains the most haunting of all questions. Some suggest it was placed as a stabilizer, to anchor Earth's tilt and climate, ensuring that life could flourish. Others imagine it as a vault, carrying seeds of life, technology, or knowledge across the dark between stars. Still others fear it is a sentinel, an eye that has never closed, recording every movement of humanity, transmitting or storing data for intelligences unseen. Each possibility redefines our place in the cosmos. Each one suggests that humanity is not sovereign, but part of a larger architecture of intention. Conflict sharpens here, for skepticism clings to the safety of science. Tidal locking, gravitational effects, geological layers, these are sufficient, we are told. The moon needs no hidden purpose, it simply is. Yet the unease remains. Coincidence piles upon coincidence until doubt itself becomes the weightiest evidence. Perhaps science is correct, and the moon is natural. But if so, why does it feel so deliberate? Why does its presence resemble design even when explained away? The refusal of mystery to vanish is itself a kind of testimony. And perhaps this is the point. Perhaps the moon is not meant to be solved. If it is a construct, its secrecy is part of its function. If it is natural, its improbability is its gift, compelling us to wonder, to doubt, to stretch our imagination toward the unknown. In both cases, it operates as a mirror, reflecting not only the sun, but our own questions back to us. The moon is not passive. It shapes us through its silence, through the weight of unanswered possibility. The climax of the riddle lies not in evidence, but in perspective. For whether machine or stone, sentinel or accident, the moon alters how we see ourselves. If it is artificial, then we are being observed, guided, perhaps even cultivated. If it is natural, then our existence depends upon a coincidence so profound that it feels indistinguishable from miracle. In both cases, we are forced into humility, recognizing that our story is entangled with forces beyond our grasp. The moon is less an object than a question, one that has followed us through every age and will continue to do so until the end of time. Tonight, as its pale glow drapes over oceans and ruins alike, the moon carries the same quiet weight it always has. It does not speak, but its silence is not empty. It is filled with possibility, with memory, with the gravity of all that remains unasked. Whether it is machine or monument, guardian or ghost, it remains the most enigmatic presence in our skies. Its patience outlasts empires, its gaze endures beyond generations. Perhaps one day its secret will be revealed, or perhaps its secret is that it will never reveal itself at all. And so the moon endures, a mirror, a mask, a riddle orbiting endlessly above us. Not an answer, but a reminder. Not a conclusion, but an opening. Its glow falls upon the earth like a question whispered through stone and shadow. And perhaps that is enough, for the question itself to remain, haunting every mind that dares to lift its eyes into the night.